Biden gave a series of interviews over the last 24 hours that have been published. First and foremost was with Lester Holt, like you said, over at NBC News, and he is directly confronted about his age, about looking confused, and he is holding on for dear life. Let's take a listen.
I guess the question is, are you all on the same page? Are you seeing what they saw, which was moments of, frankly, that you appeared to be confused?
Lester, look, why don't you guys ever talk about the 28 lies he told? Where are you on this? Why didn't the press ever talk about that? 28 times it's confirmed he lied in that debate. I had a bad, bad night. I wasn't feeling well at all. And I had been, without it making, I screwed up. But
I just asked the question because the idea that you may or may not have seen what some of these other folks have seen, you're not on the same.
I'd have to see, I was there. I'd have to see it, I was there. And by the way, seriously, you won't answer the question, but why didn't the press talk about all the lies he told?
Well,
I don't know anything about that.
We have reported many of the issues that came up during that debate.
No, you haven't.
We'll provide you with them.
God love you.
Okay. Who do you listen to on deeply personal issues, like the decisions whether to stay in the race or not?
Me.
Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, we've talked about this before. Democrats are so great in this with it, but he lied 28 times. I'm like, oh, not 26? 28, not 30? Not 32. Where did they even get these numbers from? It's just
why won't the press talk about Trump's lies? It's 2024. Press has been talking about that for 8 years.
Yeah. Also, nobody cares. But that last question, Ryan, that last answer, what did you make of that, man? He is the only person. He keeps saying it. The Lord Almighty himself.
The number of pieces of kind of Trump attire that he's adorning himself with is just incredible. So I alone can fix it becomes me. At his Michigan rally, you had the crowd chanting, "Lock him up," and booing the press corps. It's utterly incredible to watch this transformation of and out of this kind of this fear and shock that the man that they thought they had vanquished not only might be coming back, but really looks like he's quite plausibly coming back to becoming president. It's just, the brain breaking that we saw during the first Trump administration is now looking mild compared to what we're seeing here.
He also, Ryan, went off a little. I'm curious what you think of this too, because I've been kind of annoyed about this rhetoric about how everyone's like, oh, we need to tone the rhetoric down. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, conceptually, but also we can criticize each other and that's fine. And if you say, put Trump in the bullseye, I'm like, I don't think that you were targeting him for assassination. In the same way that I don't think that Sarah Palin was targeting Gabby Giffords. It's ridiculous. But Biden actually seemed to accept that frame. He was asked about the rhetoric in the interview, and he said it was actually a mistake to put Trump in the bullseye. Take a listen to that answer.
Well, let's talk about the conversation this has started, and it's really about language, what we say out loud and the consequences of those. You called your opponent an existential threat on a call a week ago. You said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. There's some dispute about the context, but I think you appreciate that
I didn't say crosshairs. I was talking about focus on. Look, the truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was there was very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Yeah, the term is bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him. Focus on what he's doing. Focus on his policies. Focus on the number of lies he told in the debate. Focus. I mean, there's a whole range of things that, look, I'm not the guy that said I want to be a dictator on day one. I'm not the guy that refused to accept the outcome of the election. I'm not the guy who said that one accept the outcome of this election automatically. You can't only love your country when you win. And so the focus was on what he's saying, and I mean the idea.
But have you taken a step back and done a little soul searching on things that you may have said that could incite people who are not balanced?
Well, I don't think, look, how do you talk about the threat to democracy, which is real, when a president says things like he says? Do you just not say anything because it may incite somebody? Look, I have not engaged in that rhetoric. Now, my opponent is engaged in that rhetoric. He talks about there'll be a bloodbath if he loses, talking about how he's going to forgive all the, actually, I guess, suspend the sentences of all those who were arrested and sentenced to go to jail because of what happened in the Capitol. I'm not out there making fun of, like, remember the picture of Donald Trump when Nancy Pelosi's husband was hit with a hammer, joking about it.
So what do you make of that, Ryan? This is part of why it's annoying me on Biden, the two-facedness of it. I think it's fine to engage in normal political rhetoric and to criticize one another. It's an election. We have massive differences between these two parties. But then he's also speaking a little bit out of the side of his mouth. What do you think?
Yeah, he kind of apologized for the bullseye at first, and then he sort of seemed to be apologizing for not saying crosshairs, which is the more accurate phrase than bullseye there. But then by the end of it, he was defending it, and I think by the end of it, that's where you and I both agree with him that actually, look, yeah, if you think these things about your opponent, then say the things. It's also absurd to think that the Gabby Giffords shooter looked at an ad that Sarah Palin had put out and was like, aha. That's interesting. I'm going to go kill Gabby Giffords.
Yes, get out of here.
And it's also crazy that this 20-year-old was just like sitting around and like read a Wall Street Journal leak of like a private donor call that Biden had where he used the phrase bullseye and was like, oh, wait, Trump's coming here in a couple days. I'm going to climb up on the roof and put a bullseye on him. And like that's just absolutely absurd. Now, like, does like the political heat that is turned up to 11 make violence more likely? Yes, that's obvious, but you're not turning that down by just policing a little bit of kind of rhetoric here. It's much more structural and fundamental than that.
Absolutely, and I've always believed that. People say this all the time. They're like, oh, your rhetoric is encouraging. I'm like, well, unless you literally said to go and commit violence, I don't believe that. People have agency and individual responsibility for their actions. How many times have people accused us of saying like, oh, you guys have anti-Semites in your comments? What am I supposed to do about that? I'm controlling the comments section. It's a free country. Last time I checked, I don't agree with it. Wish you wouldn't say it, but I'm not going to be like, oh, you got to ban him or some guilt by association bullshit. And we say that all the time too.
We can't control it.
We can't. There's no control over here. By the way, to those people, don't watch it. All right, get rid. I don't care. Get lost. But even with that, the guilt by association connection is a tried and true media tactic. And actually, that's a good segue because I definitely wanted to get your reaction to this one. Biden, for some reason, sat with the Complex YouTube channel and was asked about Israel. It's always funny too. Presidential candidates often reveal the most with interviewers who give them tons of rope to hang themselves because there's no pushback or anything. And then they say some of the craziest stuff. So let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Your stance and support for Israel has been unwavering. During the debate, you said that we are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. You also said that we're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. Back in April, $26 billion in aid was sent or was approved to be sent to Israel. Why?
I said defensive weapons. I denied them offensive weapons that they were using, 2,000-pound bombs and the rest, because I made it real clear. They cannot use weapons that we provide them to, in fact, use in civilian areas. And that's why I put together this plan.
My question, though, is why is your and United States at the current moment support for Israel so strong?
Look, Israel, if there weren't an Israel, every Jew in the world would be at risk. Every Jew in the world would be at risk. And so there's a need for it to be strong and a need for Israel to be able to have, after World War II, the ability for Jews to have a place that was their own. But you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. And the Zionist is about whether or not Israel is a safe haven for Jews because of their history of how they've been persecuted.
Are you a Zionist?
Yes. Now you'll be able to make a lot out of it because some people don't know what a Zionist is. Do you know what a Zionist is?
I just ask questions, I don't answer.
By the way, I'm the guy that did more for the Palestinian community than anybody. I'm the guy that opened up all the assets. I'm the guy that made sure that I got the Egyptians to open the border to let good goods through, medicine and food. But what's happening is, and I'm the guy that's been able to pull together the Arab states to agree to help the Palestinians with food and shelter. I'm the guy, and so it's not, I mean, I have been very supportive of the Palestinians. But Hamas are a bunch of thugs. Hamas is not worthy to, I was over there about 8 days after the massacre, saw photographs of mothers and daughters being tied in a rope together, kerosene poured in their head and then burned to death. Nothing's happened like that since the Holocaust. And it's just not appropriate.
By the measure of your support for Israel, why would a Muslim or an Arab American vote for you for re-election?
The same reason why Arab Americans in the region support me. The same reason why, because it's the best way to keep peace, the best way to put things together, to make sure that there is a two-state solution in the region. And I've been a strong supporter of that. And everything I've done has been, I've gotten significant support from Arab countries in the region as well. Look, the idea here is that, for example, I got a call from the Saudis. They want to fully recognize Israel. In return, if the United States will give them a guarantee that they will provide weapons if they're attacked by other Arab nation, that the one just around the corner, and that we'd allow them we would put a civilian nuclear facility there, we'd operate, our military, we'd operate it so they can move away from fossil fuels. That's a big game changer in the whole region. I've worked with El-Sisi of Egypt. I've worked with the King of Jordan as a friend. So I've been able to work with the Arab countries very well. And I don't have a prejudiced bone in my body. The Arabs are good people. They need help now.
All right, so what'd you make of that, Ryan? He's done more for the Palestinians than everybody, and not a Jew in the world would be safe. That's one of his favorite lines, isn't it?
He often uses that line, and you often hear people saying, like, we have 6-7 million Jewish Americans here.
Yeah.
Isn't it your job as president to make sure that they're safe? Like, you're just going to completely outsource that? It's an atrocious way to think. You can't imagine it working like it. I mean, it falls apart just on its own. You don't even need to compare it to anything else. But if it is true that he's done more for Palestinians than anybody else in the world, then you really have to fear for the Palestinians. That things have not gone well for them there. At the same time, what he's talking about is putting pressure on Israel to allow more aid in. But since the invasion of Rafah, the already insufficient aid has collapsed, close to zero, and the situation has only gotten, that much direr. And meanwhile, it has just completely fallen off a cliff when it comes to kind of at least American attention.
Yeah, it is also interesting to me about beyond the policy. Just notice how quiet he is when he talks. You can see the age is just shining through. It's funny because in his head, he thinks he's doing everybody a favor through these press conferences and these interviews. And it's like, nobody disputes your ability to ramble and rattle off facts. It's that while you're doing that, it's like you're whispering constantly, the coughing, the stutters, the confusion about what is happening. These aren't in an ideal environment. That's as good as it gets for a presidential interview, just so people know. Zero pushback, zero interview, basically no offense to the guy, but I'm not 100% sure he really even knew what he was talking about there whenever he's pressing him on some of the issues. And so even in that, Biden is showing lots of issues. Final thing on the Democratic point, let's put this up there on the screen, is that Nancy Pelosi is apparently making calls and working the phones to try and find a way to ease him off of the ticket. She, quote, told by people familiar with the exchanges she has stage managed phone calls to Jeffries, plotted strategies with some of the biggest names in Democratic politics, and told a former elected official bluntly, Biden's legacy can't be destroying their party. So final thoughts, Ryan. What do you think of this? Will it be successful? I don't really think so, but it does give some color to the interview she gave, where she opened the space to get rid of Biden if it was possible.
She's working it hard, and she's still very powerful. Stan Greenberg, an ally of hers, it was reported by this good CNN report that Stan Greenberg has been pulling his hair out trying to get. He's a DCCC pollster, like, centrist, like the establishment figure in good standing. He has all of the analysis of why Biden can't win and why they need to replace him. That he's just trying to puncture the bubble of Biden's inner circle. And the rhetoric is turning to, and the strategy is turning to, reminding in the inner circle, that they are complicit in this, and that if they continue to push this forward, they're going to pay a price as well. Biden won't have much of a price to pay. We'll see how long he has to pay that price. But his aides, many of them, want to work in Democratic Party politics, the rest of their careers, and people they're being reminded, that they're putting that in jeopardy.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.